Good evening, everyone. I'd like to call this meeting of the Cumberland School Committee to order at 7:46. I'd like to first apologize for being late. We had a meeting prior to this that ran over. Next up is Pledge of Allegiance. Please rise for the pledge. Thank you. Next up is the approval of the agenda. Pleasure of the committee. Mr. Hess makes a motion to approve. Second by Mr. Demotica. All those in favor? Aye. That passes 6-0. I'd also like to note for the record that Mr. Salvatore is not present tonight. Next up is the consent agenda. There are a bunch of items here. Approval of minutes from the regular meeting 9/27/2018. Approval of minutes from executive session 9/27/2018. The enrollment report of October 1st. The school police report of September 1st, and the residency truancy report of October 1st. Pleasure of the committee.
Motion to approve.
Motion to approve by Mr. Fiorillo. Second by Mrs. Goggin and Mr. Hess. All those in favor? Aye. That passes 6-0. Next up is report out of executive session. We had an executive session on 9/27. There were no votes taken, and I need a vote to seal the minutes from that executive session. Mr. Demotica makes a motion to seal. Second by Mrs. Goggin. All those in favor? Aye. That passes 6-0. Next up is report of executive session from tonight, October 11th. There were no votes taken, and I need a vote to seal the minutes of executive session.
So moved.
Mr. Fiorillo makes a motion to approve, to seal the minutes. Second by Mr. Hess. All those in favor? Aye. That passes 6-0. Sorry about that, everyone. Next up is superintendent's report. Mr. Mitchell, take it away.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Can you please join me down at the podium? Test. Good evening, everyone. We would like to take a few minutes to recognize some folks who have retired from their positions in the district. Is Maureen Orabone here? Okay, she is not. Okay. So the first person that I would like to recognize this evening for her service to the district is Marcia Lindback. Marcia, come on up. Come stand over here, Marcia. All right. So Marcia has worked in the district for 27 years. And let me just share a little something about Marcia's experience. She works in the business office now, or at least she did. She's retired now. Marcia began with the Cumberland School Department in 1987 as a teacher assistant and later as secretary to the assistant principal at the high school from 1998 to 2000. She accepted an opportunity elsewhere in 2000, but returned to the Cumberland School Department as a building secretary at North Cumberland Middle School and the high school transitional building. In 2013, she transitioned to the business office and remained in the payroll department through her retirement. Marcia, on behalf of the school committee, we thank you for your 27 years of experience here. 29 years of experience here. And we wish you well in your retirement. And two things. I have a certificate for you, and I can't give it to you now because it was supposed to be signed. I signed it, and the chair of the school committee signs it, but he is ill and wasn't able to sign it, so we'll get that to you. We know how to track you down. And most importantly, you get one of these special bags. And this actually is an upgrade. This is a little bit bigger than the bag, so you can put more of your stuff in there when you go on vacation.
Oh, I have. Absolutely.
So,
First thing on my mind.
congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, enjoy.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, Marcia worked with me the last 6 years, and I just want to publicly acknowledge the great job she did in payroll. You know, no one even knows who the payroll person is if payroll's running right? People's pays are correct, and all the different various deductions that come out, work out each week, there's no problems. But and no one ever heard from Marcia because she did such a great job at it. So thank you for your great work in there.
Thank you.
And Marcia wants to thank you, Alex, for the joy that you bring to that department on a daily basis. So the next person that I want to recognize is Kevin Kolick. Kevin, come on up. We're going to give him a bag. So I'm sure that many of you know that Kevin Kolick was a school resource officer for 11 years. We got that right. And based on my experience and you know, having been a high school principal before becoming a central office administrator, I had an opportunity to work with a number of school resource officers, and I can't begin to tell you how valuable they are. And it really is an important role for many reasons. And the thing that I think impresses me the most, and I think Kevin did a great job of this, is, you know, like, I think whenever all of us are in a situation where we have to deal with the police, it's a scary thing. But the school resource officers have an opportunity to have a positive influence on the way that we all think about police officers. And I can tell you that Kevin really had a nice way about the way that he handled students and established really good relationships with them, and they trusted him. And the goal was never to catch students doing something wrong. The goal was always to help students make the right choices. And one of the things, you know, things are going well when students, because of the trust that is established between, in this particular case, Kevin and the student body, students would go to him to let him know that something bad could potentially happen. So, and hence, some bad things were prevented as a result of the relationships that he established with his students. He was good at what he did. And, you know, my office faces Mendon Road, and students love to park in that parking lot next to the pool club. And rain, sleet, or snow, every single day at the end of the school day, every day, Kevin was out there coordinating the students leaving that parking lot. And I mean, incredibly reliable and did a great job. And, you know, students, as you know, I mean, if somebody's not there and they can, you know, take a different route to get out of the parking lot faster, that's what they're going to do. But a really fine job of making sure that he was there every single day. So, Kevin, I was kind of surprised because it happened, you know, pretty quickly that you decided to retire. But you did a great job, and thank you for, you know, this is my 7th year, so, you know, we worked pretty closely on a couple of things. So thank you for being so responsive, and I think you did a great job. So thank you. And you get a bag. So congratulations. All right, I think we're good. Thank you. Should I keep this on or shut it off?
Thank you.
Okay, just a few more things. I met recently with Rob Thurston, who is an English teacher at the high school. I'm sure that some of you have had an opportunity to meet Rob. And that Rob is here because he needs some help. And I suggested that Rob come and speak to the school committee because, to be honest, I was hoping that you might be able to help him with this this IRB AP research process that needs to be implemented for this particular course that he teaches. So Rob is here to share a little bit of information about this AP research course. Is this the first time we're offering this? Okay. And he has one of his students who I have not met yet, I don't believe. And Rob is going to talk a little bit about this AP research course and how you might be able to help him. And I'm not saying that to put any pressure on you, but because it's not going to require a tremendous amount of your time, but I do think that you might consider helping out. So Rob, why don't you come on up and introduce your student and talk a little bit about this process that you need help with.
Okay, I'm Robert Thurston. I teach the AP research class. Last year I had the same students in an AP seminar class. This year they're conducting their own research in addition to doing research and finding out where gaps might be or how they can add their voice to the conversation that's going on in current research. The College Board requires the class to have, or the students in the class, if they're using any human subjects, if they're doing case studies, or if they're doing surveys that use people, that requires that they get approval from an institutional review board. So I just want to go over some of the things that are required, or essentially an overview of what an institutional review board is and the makeup of an institutional review board, because I'm looking for volunteers. So the use of human participants in research is governed by federal and state law. Consequently, all research involving human participants must be reviewed by an institutional review board. The purpose of an IRB review is to assure protection of the rights and welfare of human participants in research. The IRB review focuses on such issues as voluntary participation, risk to participants, informed consent, and confidentiality. A description of the Institutional Review Board. Essentially, the IRB is charged with the responsibility of protecting the rights and welfare of human participants involved in research as mandated by the Department of Health and Human Services, the Food and Drug Administration, and the state of Rhode Island. The IRB shall consist of at least 5 members with varying backgrounds, in addition to possessing professional competence necessary to review research activities. The IRB shall be able to ascertain the acceptability of proposed research in terms of institutional commitments and regulations, applicable laws, and standards of professional conduct. To ensure that no IRB consists entirely of men, entirely of women, or entirely of members of a single discipline or profession. Membership shall include at least one person whose primary concerns are in scientific areas, and at least one member whose primary concerns are in the non-scientific areas. The IRB shall include at least one member, and this might be most difficult, one member at least who is not otherwise affiliated with the institution. The IRB may, at its discretion, invite individuals with competence in special areas, consultants, to assist in the review of issues that require expertise beyond or in addition to that available in the committee. And finally, no IRB member may participate in the initial or continuing review of any project in which the member has a conflicting interest. So it's kind of straightforward. We're only really need it because it's required by the College Board, and because it's part of the process when they're learning to do research that these kinds of things happen, and it's kind of very authentic that what they're learning. And I brought Connor because he's going to kind of present his plan or proposal for research and how the IRB could help him.
Hi, as Mr. Thurston said, I'm Connor Jordan. Nice to meet you. And I'm here to provide an example of the research we're conducting through my project, which is cheesily named AI, IQ, and U, the intersection of psychology and technology. So just yesterday, half the high school took standardized tests in the form of the PSATs. And while those scores don't matter much to them now, in 5 to 10 years, when they're entering a workforce that's now dominated by automation, by innovation, their intelligence is going to be judged next to the AI that's also vying for their jobs. And we've been studying that intelligence for centuries, and we've reached our own conclusions about what it entails, our own definitions, our assessments. But we've never really stopped and looked at the implications or re-examined our preconceived notions. We have a very narrow-minded view. We're Western, we're individualist, and we don't know if that's the best way to look at intelligence. So I am to look at the validity of our current intelligence assessments from IQ to GPA to SATs, and really establish a concrete definition of intelligence, a concept that on the surface seems really intuitive, but can actually be kind of really difficult to ascertain. The second problem we see is that the ideas that we have of intelligence are really outdated. I found an article which was corroborated by many other psychologists and epistemologists from the late 80s, in which he completely dismissed artificial intelligence and said it will never be able to compete with human intelligence. But since then, AI has beat us in chess, in driving, in farming, in manufacturing. It's improved a lot, and we have to look at how we have improved to match that, how we can compare to artificial intelligence in terms of our own. Definitions and ethics are really tricky with this because the whole point is that it's hard to define, hard to pin down. So we really need to explore the concept in general, how to define intelligence. And in terms of ethics, when we're doing human testing, it's really important to make sure that we're being, completely responsible with everyone's identity, and especially when we're dealing with figures of like test scores, IQ scores. And so when I'm taking numerous approaches to this problem of intelligence and artificial intelligence, we have to look at, interviews or surveys with students, with teachers, with even college professors. We're looking at naturalistic observation of how people compare in mundane tasks like chess or pattern recognition, which is feasible for like a student like me in high school to undertake. And really, this involvement of human behavior, especially like the controversial ones like intelligence, they require that institutional review board to really look at it and make sure that I'm going about it in a reasonable way. My peers and I, we're really trying to push the envelope here and investigate some pressing problems. It's a diverse array of issues, from the overprescription of opioids in America to the traffic in the CHS hallways. And we really need your help to fix these problems in an efficient and effective manner. So thank you.
I followed some of what you just said.
So I have a question for Mr. Thurston. So do you have already an idea? So 5 people have to be on this board?
Yes.
And there has to be at least one person, right, that's not affiliated with the institution?
Correct.
So have
So
you
we-
thought about who could fill these roles?
The department head for special ed has agreed at the high school, and so has Dr. Santa. Other than that, I don't have any, preconceived groups or people. The commitment would be essentially the people in this class they don't even have to, they'll present what they're going to do and the approaches to me for approval before it would come to you. And I foresee it being more of a rubber stamp thing, but I welcome your feedback. Probably that means a meeting in November, as early as November, and possibly if they encounter difficulties in research and have to modify something, another meeting in January. And that would probably be it.
Can I ask, are parents considered somebody affiliated with the institution, or are they?
Not as long as it's not somebody that's involved with the research.
Anyone else have any questions? Do you anticipate needing this every year, or
Yes.
is this pretty much a one-year commitment?
This
for
is,
now?
well, I started with AP Seminar last year. It was the first year of AP Capstone even being in Cumberland, and I think we were only one of the first schools in Rhode Island to offer the AP Capstone program. And the way we have it set up now is that's kind of going to be a looping system, a dynamic. So there's another teacher teaching AP Seminar this year who will also then teach AP Research next year. So it would be a yearly thing. Usually, I essentially used Rhode Island College's information to make the presentation. Usually, it's about a 3-year commitment, but that can change. People can come on and off the board as necessary.
And what's sort of the, who decides who's on it? Is that just you, or typically would like a board of RIC decide, or like how's it done at colleges?
I think at colleges, it has to do with the vice president of academic affairs, so who would make final decisions if there are multiple people clamoring to be on the board.
And one more question. Do you think that it would be, all these decisions would be made in a meeting, or would it be done through email or some other mechanism?
I think most of the information could be done by email. It could be a virtual meeting, wouldn't even have to take place, in a location. But there would have to be, I guess, minutes of the meeting, or, who came before the board and what the decision was.
But part of this is getting the students comfortable with presenting their
Well,
research.
They don't have to present it to the institutional reviewer. They're presenting a piece of paper that says, this is my plan, this is the research proposal, and these are my methods and approaches to that plan, which include this particular survey, or this, for instance, they wouldn't necessarily have to say everyone that they were going to interview if they were doing case studies, but conducting interviews would be part of that approach. So, but for instance, if they're doing a survey, you would review the survey questions to make sure that, nothing is untoward.
So are you looking for some volunteers tonight, or help for finding volunteers, or?
Both.
Both?
You only have 5 spots.
Yeah. Yeah, and I would love to help in any way I can. I'm involved with undergraduate research in my job, and I would love to help. I'm math, I don't think that's scientific. But I would love to help you in any way I can.
Great, thank you.
And I volunteer as well. As luck would have it, Amy and I, neither one of us will be associated with the school department in a few weeks.
Okay.
After the election, right? So, but that doesn't preclude anybody else from jumping up.
Yeah, I'd volunteer too.
Okay. Thank you. That kind of does it.
I, for one, would be fascinated in hearing what your research finds as to when the robots will take over. So,
I don't think it's going to be that kind of result, but yeah, there might be some leanings.
And Mr. Jordan, I think 4 years ago I would have predicted that you would have been researching Canada after your Quebec presentation in this room, but which was awesome.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Well done, Connor. Okay, I just have a few more things that I would like to share very quick, and thank you, school committee members, for helping us out. Appreciate that. I would be remiss if I did not acknowledge that this is National School Principals Month, and I think it's apropos for me to recognize the hard work that principals do all day and every day. We are very fortunate, I believe, because we have 8 principals that are really good at what they do. I think a great example is, and I've said this before, the first day of school is a sight to behold because it is so well organized. And you would think that after 8 weeks or 9 weeks off, that there might be a glitch or two in the process, but they don't miss a beat because they are so well organized. We talk a lot about the importance of administrators being instructional leaders. It is our expectation that they take that role very seriously because it is their most important role, and I believe that we have administrators, both principals and assistant principals, who understand how important that role is. So I just want to publicly acknowledge them for the work that they do and let them know how much we appreciate it. So just wanted to mention that about National School Principals Month. As you all know, moving on to the next item on the agenda, we are working hard to get information out on the school bond referendum. Many of you have attended some of the PTO meetings that have already taken place, and between now and November 6th, there will be meetings at all 8 schools. I think we're close to half of them. We've met with half of the PTOs up to this point, and we have established a plan where we're getting some communication out about the bond referendum every week from now until November 6th. We have a committee that meets regularly. In fact, we are meeting again on Monday. Mr. Prignano, Mr. DeMonica serve on that committee, and a lot of planning has taken place. I think the most important thing that we can do is raise everyone's awareness as to this once-in-a-generation opportunity, and I think most people recognize that schools, I'm not talking about Cumberland because I think we've done a good job, especially recently in addressing some of our facilities issues, but we still have a lot of work to do in preparing our schools for 21st century learners. So there is still other facilities work to be done, but we want to transform our schools so that our students are exposed to those things that they're going to the careers that they're going to be applying for when they are done with their public school education. So more information to come, and again, I would urge everyone to get out and vote and support question 1 and question 5, the state referendum with the $250 million, and the Cumberland facilities referendum, the $83 million, to support the facilities work that needs to be done, not only in the state, but in the town of Cumberland. And last but not least, very quickly, there are some Cumberland flu clinics scheduled. This is an opportunity for everybody to get in and get their flu shots. They are scheduled for October 18th, October 29th, and November 14th, right here in the high school from 4 to 6:30 each of those days, 18th, 29th, and November 14th. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Mitchell. I may be sending it right back to you. The next up is the chairperson's report, which is the update on CHS band uniforms. I'm sure that Mr. Salvatore had something planned to say
Yes.
for this. I know Mr. Ferrocci is here.
Mr. Ferrocci's here. Mike,
Yeah.
do you have something you'd like to share with the school committee?
I
and
just
the
meant that.
audience?
I'm sure Mr. Salvatore wanted to have a preamble to what you were going to say, but Mr. Ferrocci, take it away.
Sure. We have a fitting for the kids scheduled next Thursday. So Mr. Pearson is our representative from Stanbury. He'll come down. He'll size all the kids. We have sole source letters for the uniforms produced, which means that it's unique to Cumberland, designed for Cumberlands. As well, I'm working on the storage of those uniforms. So the company Wenger Corp. Will be quoting us, or has quoted us, the shelving units and where they would install them in the rooms. That's where we are right now on it. I don't know if there's anything more specific that I could get into for you.
I have a question about procedure. So we haven't approved the money for this, have we, Mr. DeMonica?
We have already voted upstairs to set the money aside from last year's budget to pay for this. We haven't approved any resolutions yet to spend it. I had an email conversation with the band director about how to proceed, and that was to go through the high school principal and however requisitions are done to follow that procedure. So we need to take the vote to spend the money on each of them once the resolution comes to the committee.
Thank you. Can you tell me how many you're buying? What-
110 is what we'd like to buy. That doesn't mean you can put 110 kids in it.
Yep.
If you have 110 kids, then 110 doesn't do it, right? So that would probably fit 95 about. I mean, obviously, you can't quite tell because the sizes are different. You don't know what exactly you're going to get. I'm going to do the best to predict that. And so 110 would probably put about 95 kids in uniforms. And I do anticipate that we will get there 3 to 5 years, and these uniforms will be around for a while. So,
And is it normal practice to do measurements of students? Like, it seems like you could buy an assortment and they would have a recommended assortment. So,
yeah, measurements is how we generally go about it. Kids are different sizes in different schools and different areas. So,
Yep.
yeah, we'll get the sizes, and I'm even sizing those seniors, even though they're going to be graduated by next year, right? Just so we can have an idea, and we can do the best to predict, what the future holds and how big the kids will be and how many there will be and all that.
thank you.
Great, thanks.
Next up is reports from standing committees. First up is payment of bills. Mr. DeMonica.
Mr. Chairman, we did meet tonight and discussed the payment of bills. We have 2 sets of vouchers, 2017, 2018, and 2018, 2019. So the first one is 2017, 2018 in the amount of $184,110.50. It passed upstairs on a 3-0 vote, and I would move passage.
Mr. DeMonica moves passage of payment of bills in the amount of $184,110.50. Did I get that right?
Second.
Second by Mr. Fiorello. Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye. That passes 6-0.
And the next set of vouchers is 2018, 2019. The amount is $1,110,059.78. Passed upstairs, 3-0 vote. I would move passage.
Mr. DeMonica moves passage of payment of bills in the amount of $1,110,059.78. We have a second? Second by Mr. Hess. All those in favor? Aye. That passes 6-0. Thank you. Next up is the report from your committee, which is Fiscal Management Subcommittee.
Mr. Chairman, we did meet tonight. We voted, which will come up later on in regards to the employee compensation that gets posted to the website. And we got a little update from the business manager, and that was it tonight.
Thank you, Mr. DeMonica. Next up is Policy and Procedures Subcommittee update. Mr. Fiorillo.
Policy and Procedures did not meet. We will meet in 2 weeks.
Thank you, sir. Next up is Achievement and Communications Subcommittee update. Mrs. Goggin?
Okay, we met last night. The basic thing on the agenda was discussion about the district strategic plan and academic achievement goals, and I think our goal last night was to come up with some questions for the administration that could be used for future meetings. We talked about what it meant to be a top 5 high school and how we're measuring that and how we're measuring it against the rest of the state. And also looking at our graduation rates and getting a better understanding of our students who don't graduate and the reasons going for that. And anything you want to jump in on? Nope. Or you?
Thank you, Mrs. Goggin. I'm all set. Next up is comments from the public. Anyone wish to speak? Come up to the podium. I don't see anyone getting up, so thank you. Next up is old business. Discussion and a vote to approve the 2018-2019 school bus routes. Mr. Mitchell.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We have our friends from Durham here this evening to answer any questions that you may have. Steve Schmuck, Francisco Montero, and Paul Neves are here. The one thing that I can report personally is that, since the last time we met, I can, without question, say that I'm sure I've maybe received 1 or 2 concerns. In fact, I had one today, and Mr. Montero responded. almost immediately to it. But there's no question that I have personally have not, I don't recall any complaints or many complaints since the last time that we met. So I don't know if you have any questions for them, but they are here if you do.
You want to come up to pleasure of the committee? Yeah, questions. Mrs. Goggin, sure. You might need to come up to respond just so we can get you on the recording. Thank you. So, Mrs. Goggin?
Well, I guess the first thing, there were a few things 2 weeks ago that you said you'd get back to us on, so I didn't know if you had reports back on those things, or if you wanted to have us ask again, or.
Earlier on, prior to that meeting about, and we did meet with the driver, and those 3 students were validated, and we are picking them up in that area. So that, it seems as though that would be an effective stop that we wouldn't change necessarily, so.
It's not listed on, I mean, I know this is only one day, but in that area, it can't be across the street because it's a 40-mile-an-hour road. Okay. Okay. Yeah, I mean, I've been there, I mean, it's, but, and it's not listed, they didn't stop on Monday, so, but that's only one day, so that doesn't give us the big picture. Okay? Well, whatever day this is, these are. Yes.
Yeah, what is the date of that?
I see scheduled day Monday, so I just,
Okay, can you just describe what it is in the packets that you,
The same every PM? And I'm sorry, you're referring to, is it Route 20 or Route 34?
now it's Route 34.
Route 34.
Yep. The other question I guess I had asked was, and I got another email from a parent about the same thing, I think is now bus 29, and it was the general question. I think we want to know how closely I want to know how closely routes are looked at as far as this idea of first on, first off, and do we do it when it makes sense to limit the total amount of time students are on a bus? In the case of bus 29, it's a circle, so you know, and you end up further from wherever you're going at the end. So I don't know that we can use the logic that it has to be closer to something for that. So I need to follow up for the people in this neighborhood.
Okay, I hadn't heard any further concerns about 29 specifically, so I definitely will immediately go back and look at 29 for the logistics of it. We definitely do evaluate those on a very consistent, regular basis. We take feedback from our drivers. We do a safety risk assessment, so if there's a situation where we need to maybe engage the DPW or low-hanging branches or whatever prior to performing a route that might be risky, we try to make those adjustments. If Left-hand turns, for example, we try to avoid making as many left-hand turns as possible because those are typically a riskier blind spot maneuver. So if we can take a right and another right through a neighborhood and then navigate back off to another neighborhood, we try to do those type of situations. And then sometimes we try to make logistical changes based on what we feel is the safest decision. Maybe it's how we position ourselves for the next turn in an intersection where there might be a higher degree angle turn. There's a lot of thought that we do try to put into it, and honestly, we do welcome feedback, and if there's something that makes more sense, we take it.
Okay, and I am glad to hear that you get driver feedback, because I think the driver of this particular bus has been doing it for a long, long time, and I think in general, people have a good deal amount of respect for him. So I think what he
Excellent.
says should be pretty valued.
Thank you. I would like to say that I think our drivers are really trying to do an outstanding job for the community. We have a lot of veteran corps employees that really care passionately about the children and want to do a great job. And so they're equally concerned about, you know, the perceptions and what's going on in the community, and do want to do a great job.
Mr. DeMonica?
Steve, we asked a question of the superintendent upstairs tonight, and that question was, does Cumberland have enough school buses to get the job done? And obviously it would be you guys knowing whether we have enough school buses to get the job done. Do we or don't we?
That's a great question, and over the years, we've looked at a lot of different scenarios to try to improve or give bell time suggestions, or look at the different start times as well, try to make them later and do some things that are as best as for the community as possible. And I look forward to the upcoming reviews of looking at the high school and middle school bell times, et cetera. There are and has been challenges, and I don't want to make it a long-winded answer because I know you want a yes or a no. But there is always an opportunity where we could certainly improve things if we maybe added a bus or two, but that's obviously we want to be budget-friendly, safety-friendly, and do the right things for the community. And you know, we've, I believe, got a pretty good performance at this point. We've got, like I said, it's been very quiet on our end. Every time we get any feedback at all, we immediately respond. I know we had an email today with a concern, and we evaluated it. We gave GPS data, validated how we're performing, and it looks as though we're doing pretty well. I shoot for excellence, shoot for perfection, but I know we have off days or make a mistake or a sub-driver. That does happen in our industry, and they make a wrong turn. So we will continue to try to improve it, make it better. At this point, you know, I believe we're doing the job successfully. And doing it, I think, pretty well. As we look at the future and what you may want to change or look at the district, I think it would be a fair assessment to say, what do we need to do to make it better in the future, and provide that feedback when we do the evaluations.
Any other questions? Mr. Hess?
At this point, do we have any buses that are consistently late to school?
I will have to defer to the local team. I haven't heard of any that have been consistently late. I know we've had some that have been late for a number of different reasons, but I'm not aware of one that's been causing, you know, a loss of learning time or, you know, concerns of getting to the classroom on time. And if those do arise, we will immediately address those.
Okay. And then just as a follow-up, and this strikes my own personal family. If you have a substitute bus driver who is unfamiliar with the route, what is Durham's policy or process or desired behavior in that scenario? What is the driver supposed to do? What is their expected behavior to handle delivery of the students in a route that they're not familiar with?
Right, and that is definitely a challenge. We will recognize that. So historically and typically, what our preference is to have cover drivers that we try to educate on as many of the routes as possible, so that they are versed in certain you know, navigable situations or neighborhoods or challenges. And in most cases, we can move drivers around that are pretty experienced and know the area. In some situations where we've got newer employees or people that are coming in to help out because of call-outs or attendance problems, we definitely try to pair them with an effective monitor or bus aide if available, where they can help navigate the route in some cases. Now, in this community, you guys employ the monitors, and so that isn't always a successful match on how to do that. They are given the information as fast and as early as possible when we know, so they can take time to study, pull up the maps on the computer, even dry run it if possible. And I'll even give an example. We've got 2 new drivers that have been passed this weekend, past weekend, so they'll be coming to drive for this community. We're not putting them on a route. We actually are having them ride along with a number of different individuals so that they, whatever route they take, that they're pretty versed and get to know the kids, the stops, and what are the challenges with either that school or how to line up at the school properly. So we truly try to take the right approach and make sure we're not just throwing somebody behind the wheel that doesn't know what they're doing. There are circumstances where extreme shortages, where we might pull a driver from another bus yard who's fully qualified, vetted out, they're doing a safe job, but they may not be as familiar. And that's when you know that they might have took a wrong turn, a left or a right. And sometimes kids will call out, "Oh, I take a right or turn left," and so sometimes that causes some confusion. I'm sorry.
Okay, but would it be your expectations that the drivers would rely on the children to give them directions?
No, that's not what we normally would expect. No, obviously, they're going to hear kids on the bus, and we got to take that as with a grain of salt, if you will. They should be calling into dispatch if there's any confusion. As I said, there is a route sheet. They have the stops that are listed, and we'll have the information so that they can make the right decisions.
Okay. I can just say from personal experience, my son had a substitute driver on a number of occasions last week, and they were relying on the students to tell them to stop. They had the list of stops, but she went past several stops and essentially told the kids, "Well, you got to yell out and tell me that this is your stop." I'm a little surprised in this day and age that you don't have GPSs as a backup in some fashion. That you could just have a GPS on the bus with the programmed route.
We can't legally have that because it's got to be blanked out while the vehicle's in motion. That's a federal requirement.
Okay. But even absent that, I don't think it's proper or appropriate for the students to be the ones guiding the driver. I understand it's difficult to deal with a route you're not familiar with, but in this case, stops were missed. They had to loop back and drop the kid off. So I have an issue with children providing guidance to the driver in that sense.
Yeah. And in all honesty, we would welcome anybody's feedback in those situations so that we can do proper coaching or training or behavioral expectations. We have a wealth of training programs and a really excellent STAR Academy program that we enforce, and our drivers are very well versed in it. So if we have a situation that does arise, we're talking about potentially instituting a feedback system. So if that's something that you do know as a parent or as a school official, yeah, we would welcome that so we can look at the situation and correct it.
Okay. Thank you.
Mr. DeMonaco?
Steve, you had mentioned that you know the bell times for every school and you have your geo tracking, so when you pull into a certain area by the schools, you know what time they arrived. Is your software capable of sending an email to the Cumberland School Department every time a bus arrives after the bell time?
No, it does not have that capability. It's simply it's a storage system where it's depositing the information and we can run reports from it. But as far as an email notification or alert or generating something, we don't have that technology today. That student that was speaking about AI and which was way beyond my grasp, hopefully he can help us develop something like that. That'd be wonderful.
Anyone else? Mr. Fiorillo?
Yeah, I just want to point out that, I think that we all agree that the drivers are doing the best job that they can.
Thank you.
Our issues have never really been with the personnel driving the buses. But also, is there a problem with the bus tracker software? Because I've heard from different parents that it's not working. I know that there's a problem when there's alternate buses running a route. But are there certain buses that are not functioning?
So we actually, I know we actually had, I think it was Route 19, where we actually had to order a new GPS device for the unit itself. We did have a parent contact us, and we did notify them and communicate with them that that unit's being replaced. So if that vehicle is on it, it wouldn't track it appropriately. It'll still show the route, but it won't show the vehicle on the route. So when those instances occur, it will not properly report that. We actually had made the updates that we spoke about at the last meeting, where we tried to adjust the afternoon departures on the routes, so that if the bus normally departs, let's say, an elementary school at like 3:40, because of the lineup or the dismissal process, we tried to adjust the route to actually depart the school at 3:40 on average, even though it might get out at like 3:25 or 3:30. So that way the bus tracker report would show a more accurate arrival time, so that we can kind of measure against what we're really going to do. Because if I put departing at 3:30 and we never leave at 3:30, why would I want to report that? So we are trying to adjust it and manage through the bus tracker. And that's something that Francisco's been taking the lead on as well, to improve the capabilities there. And with that system, as we get more folks enrolled, we do have some messaging capabilities that we can dispatch and send messages out to. So if a bus is running late and you are signed up on the bus tracker app, even if you don't look at it, we can push some notification messages to, and that's where we want to get to, where we can be more proactive on situations.
I know that we had a conversation a while back about cameras
Yes.
inside the school buses.
Yes.
Are we progressing with that?
Yes, so we actually have 10 systems, which I think on my presentation the last time we had talked that I think the language said 6. We have 10 currently installed. I know there's always questions of certain behaviors, and we'll move buses around right now currently if there's a need for another bus camera on a certain route. We are going to order, as I said in the last presentation, new systems so that every bus has a camera system this school year. I'm going to work with Xeon, which is a Canadian firm that has some really good high definition, black and white color. They switch from day mode, night mode with infrared vision. It's got audio, video, really, really nice systems with, I think, probably about a 2-week to a 3-week recording before it overlaps, because it will overwrite itself if there's no requests. So that's the systems we will be putting in.
And when do you expect that to be completed?
We're going to probably get them in from Xeon and get them in probably in December-ish, and then hopefully over the Christmas break, get the installs going.
Okay, so you're still on the same schedule that we had originally.
We are, yeah, absolutely. And the other system that I spoke to, and we kind of glazed through it pretty quickly last session, was the drive cam system. We actually, this is a third-party system, which is a safety. It's a safety tracking as far as inertia events and alerts and coaching. We've actually got a number of those actually already installed. Those were installed this past week. And actually we got some positive events actually occurred this week. Paul was speaking to me tonight about bringing in some drivers and coaching them on some pretty narrow misses where a driver did the right thing by avoiding a situation, whether they were cut off on Diamond Hill Road or whatever the situation was specifically. And so it was a nice way to reinforce something good for a change. And so that's a system that will be in all the vehicles probably in the next few weeks. It's not something I can record or ask for a video system from, but it gives me alerts and 7 seconds of video on the inertia event, and it gives me a chance to look at seatbelt usage, make sure they're not using a cell phone, those kind of things. And our drivers, I think, and thank you for the compliment, I think they're doing a great job.
Anyone else? Mrs. Coggin?
For the bus tracker, when there are substitute buses, how hard is it to switch the GPS, whatever it is, so a parent would get an accurate tracking of the bus, even though it's not their regular bus?
Yep, there's a second system that we have running on the screen that we're supposed to substitute in and ask it if there's a change. So as long as we've got enough notice prior to the route running out in the morning or in the afternoon, we can make that change and it'll update the bus tracker for the right vehicle. If something happens at the exact departure time and they pull up, let's say, to the garage and say, we'd like to get this checked, and the mechanic says, let's pull that aside and put another bus on, that's where we probably don't have the time to make that change. And that morning, that bus won't report. We can still go back and look at the data from the GPS because they're on all the buses. We can run reports from it, but it may not work for the app on that morning. Yeah.
Anyone else? I have a question about the routes that we're voting on appear to be the routes that are on the website. Are those up to date?
Well, so I actually spoke with Mr. Chandler in that, upon, I guess, approval, we're prepared to provide electronic versions tonight, tomorrow morning, and we'll get those on the site updated for whatever you do vote.
Approval of what?
I guess of the current bus routes that we've provided.
But we don't have them. Is that right? I guess we're being asked to approve something that we don't have.
They're in the packets.
Like we have our routes today, bus 19, you can see all the stops. Is there a printout of that? Does that make sense?
We could provide a different version format if you'd like us to email them, and I mean we printed them right from the software, and I'm not sure how we've normally provided them in the past.
Okay, you guys, you know what I mean though, right? Like we're looking for the routes that the parents would see. They wouldn't see any of this data.
Right. If there's been an adjustment or anything, when these are voted, we would put those on the website. There's nothing in there that's a change for tomorrow. These are the routes we're running. So I want to make that clear. This isn't a change, or we're not proposing anything different. We've just validated you with the current information that we have today, and whether it's going to be a change from what's on the website, we're going to provide all new information for Mike to post for tomorrow. So I apologize if I've not provided that in the right format.
Yeah, I understand. So one other question. You last time you were here, you talked about the web feedback form. Has there been any movement on that?
So I actually have provided tonight, Mr. Mitchell, kind of a standard informational sheet. I've actually got some. If you'd like, I can hand them out to you this evening. And I encourage you guys to go on to www.busreport.com. I've got it running. It's a cloud-based system. Cumberland, Rhode Island is an option to select from.
Great.
And if you guys approve, and with Mr. Chandler's help, we could put that link available on your website, so that feedback will be captured and logged and reported and reacted to.
Can you just reiterate what happens when a parent fills out that form?
So it's a web-based /complaint system. It's a feedback system. So we welcome both. And it's a very simple couple screenshots of give us your information. How do you want us to call you or email you? What is the incident, or who are you acknowledging? Is there a bus or is there a route? And it's just some basic information to capture, the concern or the praise, hopefully, and that it escalates through our management system. And if there's not a response from the local management, it continues to escalate through our hierarchy so that there are responses.
So they hit submit and it goes to the local office first?
It does. It goes to the general manager at the local office.
Great. And then it gets escalated if needed, but
That's correct.
hopefully it's just taken care of at the local office. I guess about the packet here, this looks like a report, and just I may be misunderstanding, of the time on this day that you, is it a report of actual stops, or is it a proposed? I guess that, you see the difference?
Those are, again, I apologize. We should have, I guess, looked at what you wanted to print out. Those are actually our bus routes from the Versatrans routing system. It's not a printout of like what it does. It's what the routes are scheduled to do.
Okay. I don't know if you all picked up on that, but I thought it was on this day, this stop at 6:41 a.m. or whatever.
No,
so thank you for clarifying.
That's the schedule. And as I said, like in a PM route, for example, we are aware of the bell time. It might be 3:30, but the bus might depart at 3:40 on average because of when it departs the line or it loads. So those PM routes will be adjusted. So if you look at the schedule, it'll show departure from an elementary school at 3:40. So we adjust that to make sure that it pushes to the system an accurate arrival time for the bus stops.
Right, but the routes that we approved today will be posted to the web tomorrow. Those won't change, right? Those are
These are the routes we're running today.
yeah, and one of the things that I've heard other parents talk about is like they say a different bus picks their kid up every day, and what they mean is on one day they have bus A, and the next day there's a sticker or a thing in the window that says it's bus B, for example. Are those all set now? Like, can we expect that parents know what bus their kids are on? And
If there's a substitute bus or a change, there should be a system or an identifier that shows that today that this is bus 20.
okay,
And if bus 20 is not the one that's doing bus 20, there should be essentially a magnet or an overlay sign that says bus 20 or 20. So
we should always
that
see
will-
bus 20 then.
Yeah, and it should be that case. And if it's
Yeah.
not, again, we welcome feedback to make sure that we do make those adjustments. We will historically have a lot of cycles because we go through 2 state Rhode Island ordinance a year. We've got our extensive PM cycles, oil changes, et cetera. So we do cycle those through. And as drivers find a noise or anything, we pull them off the line, obviously for safety first, and then we inspect those and put them back out. So, yeah, you will witness changes to the fleet. I can't say that will never happen. But the signage should be adjusted.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Pleasure of the committee.
I'm going to save you some time on my first question because that stop is removed. So it is not here, it's on the old one. So obviously it was found that nobody's there.
Okay. The 3 students are, and I'll confirm with the team again, but we verified that the 3 students that we had originally asked about are being picked up, so it might be that they're listed at a different stop. So maybe we've
If not,
addressed
it's
it,
gone.
and then
I thought
I'm not wording it properly, and I'm sorry.
Okay, well, no, I think like Mr. Denon, I thought this was a snapshot of one particular day and how many students were picked up at each stop and how many times the bus stopped. I did not understand that this was the new proposed route.
Yeah, it's bus route by bus route, and it's the schedule of what we're supposed to do. Yep.
Do we want to table this or vote on it tonight?
I'll make a motion to table.
Mr. Fiorillo makes a motion to table. Second by Mr. Hess. Any discussion? Because information overload, I think, to put words in your mouth. You can vote no on tabling it if you want. All right, so we have a motion and a second to table. All those in favor? Aye. Against? So that passes 5-1, is that right? With Mr. DeMonica against. So we've tabled that until our next meeting. Is that right, Mr. Fiorillo?
Can I ask a question, clarification? Should I proceed with at least updating the website with the current routes we're running? That way, for the next meeting, you're prepared to...
Well, yeah, if this is the routes that they're actually running, I'd rather have them on the website so the parents have the right information. Because we have the routes on since August, and we've never approved them.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, next up is new business. Update on Professional Development Day, October 5th, 2018. Mr. Mitchell.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just an update on Mr. Damana. As you all know, he has not been sitting up here with all of us, and it's not because he doesn't like us. It's because he is having a problem with his back, and he has to get up and move every now and then. So when we're meeting over the course of the day, he has to get up and move around because of his back. So anyway, I'm sure you knew that, but I just thought it was important that folks knew that the reason that he was down there is because he's having a problem with his back.
Providing a good example for all of us.
Yeah.
Thanks, Mr. Mitchell, for explaining that. About this time, it gets a little cranky. So just a very brief update. Cindy Shabbat, in your drive, has placed some artifacts that relate to the professional development session that we had on October 5th. We basically executed a train-the-trainer model where representatives from a company called Focal Point K-12 came down and trained principals and teams that they designated, who they wanted at the table, to train their teachers across the district K-12. So it's a big operation, 450 teachers, but it was really meant to be just a walkthrough. And what Focal Point is, I won't get into too many details. If you'd like, We can have our data coordinator, Diane, our Zoomanian, come in and do a 10 or 15-minute overview at some point when she becomes more acclimated with the system on what it can do. But basically, because we're becoming more and more, data analysts, and we're looking at data all the time, the school department's response to having data in a lot of different places, we wanted to have it in one place, a one-stop shop. So this tool affords us that opportunity to do that. It has other components that we want to use that support things like PLCs. The superintendent and I talk a lot about developing professional learning communities, and that's basically improving the efficiency of how our meetings operate within buildings. So when they're having conversations, when teachers and administrators, how are they facilitating conversations around student data? Is it an efficient conversation? Are they actually getting to the root cause of the issues that are going on, or the things that they just need? Not necessarily a root cause to a problem, but helping students who need to advance in other ways. So this tool talks to Aspen, and it is a work in progress. It's a 3-year vision, because the tool of what it can do today can actually do more by us customizing it to and tailoring it to our needs. So as our needs develop, we get together with spokespeople from Focal Point and Mike Chandler, and we've been meeting on this pretty frequently. There will be some sustainability components that we need to consider as a district in terms of capacity, and Mike and I have had conversations about that. But generally speaking, when teachers are looking at student work, we have internal and external data points that are all over the place, and it doesn't make for very efficient meeting time, and our time is limited with teachers. We don't have a lot of time with them. We don't have a lot of time after school with them. So when we do have that time, we don't want them going and looking for information elsewhere. We want it in one place. So the bottom line is I traveled to most of the schools on the professional development day. My team and I were able to get out, and the teams did a really, really good job. K-8. We did have some hiccups at the high school, and we're going to have little hiccups here and there about how things are executed or how things are communicated. But overall, it was I would say a successful professional development day, and one that we're going to continuously go back to as it evolves. Any questions? And if you're interested, again, on seeing the tool at some point, I can have Diane, our Zoomanian, come in. Mr. DeMonica?
Just one, why did we take 450 teachers out of the classroom for that day? We couldn't have found a better day to do this?
So we didn't take 450 teachers out of the classroom.
Said 450.
Well, on the professional development day, 450 teachers were trained. All teachers were trained across the district on that day. I'm sorry? There's no school that day, so yeah.
Right.
Wasn't there a day before that where we pulled people out of the classrooms?
Yeah, so when I was referring to the principals and their teams, principals and two teachers or two actually principals used, K-8 used interventionists and teachers who not necessarily were in front of students, but at the high school, their infrastructure is a little bit different because they're content leaders and people who execute. They're train-the-trainer models. We had to implement that plan. We don't like to do that, but there were about, I think, 15 or 16 teachers that were with the administration. It was the high school's decision on who those people were. Bob and I did not regulate who they used.
I have a question. Do all the teachers have access to the tool, or how does that work?
Yeah, all teachers have access to the tool right now, currently, but again, it's a work in progress. So they're the only ones that can see it right now. Eventually, it'll also evolve into a student and parent portal as well.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, and one of the things I think will be helpful to members of the school committee is if we can actually do a demonstration. We'll show you at some point the vast number of things that this program can do. It really is impressive. So we should do that at some time in the future.
Thank you. Next up is discussion and/or vote to approve resolution SCR 2018-18 Employee Compensation 2018-19.
Mr. Chairman, this was up at fiscal. This is the housekeeping for us. This is for transparency. We publish on our website the salary ranges for all the employees that are with the district, or some of the positions that, even though we're not filled, what the range would be, and we're going to adjust this form so we show an asterisk that those positions are not filled at this time. So I would move passage. It passed upstairs on a 3-0 vote, and this will get posted to the website.
Mr. DeMonica makes a motion and Mr. Fiorello seconds. Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? That passes 6-0. Thank you, Mr. DeMonica. Next up is personnel recommendations. Mr. Mitchell.
Thank you, Mr. Denon. I have 3 appointments, actually 4 appointments. One of them is a winter coaching appointment. Can I give you all of them at the same time? Okay, I request the advice and consent of the school committee on the appointment of Paula Davis, custodian nights for the Cumberland School Department, effective October 16th, 2018. I request the advice and consent of the school committee on the appointment of Melissa Page, reading specialist at B.F. Norton Elementary School, with an effective date of November 5th, 2018. And I request the advice and consent of the school committee on the appointment of Paula O'Neill, classroom paraprofessional at Cumberland Hill Elementary School, with an effective date of October 15, 2018. And I request the advice and consent of the school committee on the appointment of Colin Smith, wrestling coach for the winter athletic season.
Thank you, Mr. Mitchell. Pleasure of the committee.
Motion to approve.
Mr. Fiorello makes a motion to approve the 4 appointments. Second by Mrs. Goggin. All in favor? Aye. That passes 6-0. Thank you. Next up is school committee comments, school liaison reports. Anyone like to say anything?
Just, Mr. Chair,
Mr. DeMonica.
I just want to say I appreciate that, Mr. Shaw, Councilman Shaw, and many others on the town council, Jim Mativi and others, have come out to the schools to help with the presentation to the PTOs and those that have come for the bond referendum coming up in November. And it's great that not only did they support it at the town council level, but they're coming out so that the public sees that they support it and wanted to see it happen. So, and the same for superintendent coming out to all these meetings during the week at night to make the pitch and, tell the people why it's, it's important to do that. So I just want to make note of that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. DeMonica. I echo that as well. I appreciate everyone who's done so much work on this. So thank you to you and Mr. Mitchell and Mr. Shaw and others, as you said.
And we do have a sign down there.
Anyone else? Mr. Hess, I think you... Okay. Going once, going twice? All right, that's... Mr. Fiorillo makes a motion to adjourn. Do I have a second? Second by Mr. Hess. All those in favor? Aye. That passes 6-0. We're adjourned at 8:59 p.m.